My name's Kristen, and I'm an addict. I'm going to cry, and do it. Yeah, I will. So, 7 years ago, I was standing here speaking, and the person who's going to speak for you tonight was in the very front row, and I get to be in the front row for him tonight, and my entire life, I have never felt like I was going to be the type of person to have a best friend. You know, I had seen people grow up with people and carry on those friendships for the rest of their lives. I'd always wanted that, but I didn't think I was capable of it. And even after being clean for a while, I still didn't believe that it was ever going to happen for me. And the person that is going to be speaking for you tonight is someone that has shown me that I'm worthy of a friendship for the long haul. I've grown up here in Narcotics Anonymous. I've been here for a long time, and it's been an absolute honor watching Andy grow up here too. Getting to share a lot of experiences with this person has been a highlight of my life. Being here for their first convention and getting to share this experience with this person, and going to their first concert in recovery, taking them whitewater rafting for the first time, going rock climbing for the first time, all kinds of just like life things. They were in my wedding, and even wore the same colors as my bridesmaids, you know, and I have never met someone that is capable of being as honest as this person is. If you know Andy, I feel like it's not common to meet someone that is like so aware of what it is that they are thinking or doing. And Andy has been very inspirational for me, you know, someone that feels like they're incapable of being fully honest with themselves or someone else. Andy is someone that I feel like I have come the closest to feeling unconditional love for, besides people that have like been grown and came out of my body, you know, which we could still try that. I'm going to never recover from that. That would also be an honor. Anyway, I don't want to talk about myself for too much longer here, but I do want to share with you my very best friend, Andy.
I'm an addict. Man, I don't even know what to say, guys. Like, that's yeah. Let's go home. I'm done. Thank you, Kristen, and thanks to the committee for selecting me to speak tonight. It's an honor. Honestly, I've obsessed about this moment for years. Ever since the first time I saw Kristen speak and a couple other speakers that weekend. There are nights I would lay in bed. If I were a speaker at the convention, what would I say? And 45 minutes later, I'm still talking to myself. Why the fuck can't I go to sleep? So this is a real honor, and it's super special for me too, the topic of this particular convention, the spirit of love. That's why I'm still here. That's the only thing that's kept me here. I feel like I would have been more appropriate as a speaker for We Go All the Way, but that's a completely different story. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But man, the unconditional love of this fellowship is like nothing I've ever experienced. It's everything I ever wanted. Probably about 2-3 months ago, I was in a meeting with my sponsor. She's got quite a few years clean, and she shared, you can experience every feeling you got high clean if you take the right steps. And I'm like, this woman's full of shit. And like, she's been my sponsor for a while, and I trust what she says. But when I tell you, like, when I shared that 12th step with her and got to feel that unconditional love for the first time, there's nothing like it. And I've done a lot of different things over the years. But that unconditional love is it's hard for me to describe. It's one of those spiritual experiences. You just got to do it. My clean date is October 31st, 2017. So yeah, and that's pretty special, man, because there was a time in my life I didn't think I could go longer than 4 hours without getting high. I never believed any of this was possible. I don't like to talk a lot about active addiction. You guys know how to get high or you wouldn't be here. But growing up, I always had that feeling that I was different, that I didn't belong, that I had to do something to fit in with everybody. I don't know where I got that from. I don't know if that's like a part of the disease of addiction, because I've heard a lot of other people share that same thing. Because I don't think anybody ever told me that. Not that I remember anyway. But I just always felt out of place. I grew up in a home early on. My dad is probably one of us. I can't really make that call for him, but the signs are all there. My mom is the complete opposite. She smoked one cigarette, and I think she's drank 3 times in her life, and she said she didn't like the way it made her feel. Part of me is jealous I didn't get her genes, but I wouldn't have the experience that I have today. I will say I am grateful to be in recovery today and for the experiences that I've had. They kind of went through this process back and forth. Me and my dad actually have a lot of similarities. He doesn't do well with promiscuity either, and that did not do well in their relationship. So they tried, we moved, we tried the geographical change to make their relationship work. It just didn't happen. I just recently found out through step work that I never let myself feel the way that I should have felt in that moment. It was always worrying about other people. I know this is the best decision for us, so I'm not going to be sad. I know this is better for everyone, so I'm going to just stuff it down. That's probably where the stuffing the feeling started. And I got real good at it. You guys, however, taught me the opposite and yanked it out of me. And I'm forever grateful for that, because I wouldn't be the person that I am today without it. I've also got to learn through the process of the steps how to forgive him. I held a resentment for a real long time, thinking that it was something about me. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't enough. Thankfully, listening to some of you guys share, I realized that wasn't the case. He had a disease much like I do. It had nothing to do with me. And in fact, he probably didn't feel worthy to be my dad. Whew. Yeah, that's an amends that I'm in the process of right now. This is my second go-round through the steps. First go-round, I texted him. And that's all we've done since then. That's all I could bring myself to do. So I'm talking to my sponsor. I just shared my 9th step again a couple weeks ago. And you know how we are, from one extreme to the other. I'm already planning this week-long trip. I'm going to go down and hang out with him, and we're going to be buddy-buddy, and everything's going to be gravy. She said, why don't you just try calling him first? I said, you know what? That's probably a better idea. So I haven't got there yet, but that's definitely coming around the way. So, like I said, we moved around a lot. I was in a bunch of different schools. I was used to being the new kid. Lived in North Carolina for a while. I had a slightly different accent from everybody else. And I was really self-conscious about that for a while. I had this slight southern drawl, I guess, as it were. I could fit in. I could figure out ways to fit in. I knew people really well. I could watch people. I could observe people. I could be whatever you wanted me to be, and I learned that at a very young age. It made me very popular. It made me very lonely, because nobody ever really saw the real me. I didn't really even know who the real me was. But I could put on a good face for a while. Going through the process, my mom met my stepdad. And I can say today that he's a great man. There was a time I would not have said that. I had a resentment for a really long time because I didn't think he treated me the way that he should have. So I wrote about that on my first fourth step. And I remember sitting there with my sponsor, and I'm going over this resentment, explaining it to him. And he just, sits back and smiles. He goes, "Let me ask you a question. I don't think there's a lot of coincidences in Narcotics Anonymous. Things happen when they're supposed to. I was the same age writing my fourth step as he was when he met my mom." And my sponsor says to me, "So if you met somebody right now and you were really interested in them and they had a kid, what would you do?" I said, I don't know. Don't know anything about raising kids. I would do the best I could, but I would probably screw it up. Oh, yeah. So I've got to let that resentment go and slowly start building that relationship too. And that's the thing too, is like when I'm notorious for I want the result now. I want the perfect relationship now. I want to have the perfect family picture now. A, it may never look like that. B, it's going to take time. My relationship with my parents is really different, just because of some of my personal beliefs. I came out as gay to them when I was 15 years old. They're very religious folks. That did not go well. It also doesn't do real well for your self-esteem when the people that love and care about you tell you things like you're going to burn in the eternal fires of damnation. I hadn't even really started getting high then, so I had to raw dog that statement. I will say, though, that my first use was when I was like 10 years old, hanging out with my cousins. They had some illegal substances. I tried them twice, and I probably knew in hindsight in that moment that I thought that was the solution. I've always been looking for this solution, whether it's drugs or a new career or a new relationship, something to fix me. The drugs felt that way, at least for the moment. Sometimes our defects are assets, depending on the situation. So I compensated the way I felt by excelling at everything. I was actually pretty good in school, fairly intelligent guy. Graduated like second in my class. Member of the Honor Society. I was in theater. All the nerdy shit. Like, I love it. Public speaking. So like, this doesn't really bother me. I kind of freaked out for a few minutes when I first got up here, but now I'm like in the zone. Higher powers with me. We're chilling, man. It wasn't until I got out of my house and went to college that things started to change a little bit. Was off the leash. I could do whatever I wanted, and I did. It wasn't balls to the wall in the beginning. It was kind of a slow progression over time. More socially acceptable drugs. But even in hindsight, like, drinking was always problematic. I never had just one. I always made an ass out of myself, one way or another. I would most definitely piss on your couch before the night was over. And the ironic part is, like, since I got clean, I have not pissed on anybody's couch. It's wild. Like, what is the connection there? So, I went through a couple relationships, and they were users as well. That worked in my favor, because I couldn't have somebody that wasn't a user. Like, how am I going to hide that? Like, I need this other person to co-sign my bullshit. Those relationships didn't work out. I thought coming out of the closet was going to be the solution. That didn't really help. I mean, it helped, but it didn't. Then I found my career of choice. I decided I was going to help people. And that filled the void for a little bit, but I was still getting high then too. Finished school, started my career, moved in with this guy, found out how to buy drugs on the internet, convinced my psychiatrist that I needed to be on a specific medication for ADHD. And then it was just a quick downward spiral from there. I did things that I said I would never do. I crossed lines that I said I would never cross. I don't share this to put myself in a different place, but there's a part in our literature where it talks about you don't have to wait for an overdose or a jail sentence to get help from Narcotics Anonymous. That is my story. I've never experienced either of those things. And for a while, I thought that made me different. Like, I don't fit in. I still don't know much about the legal system. Like, listening to you guys, I've learned a lot. I personally have not had any encounters. But for a while, that made me feel different and special, and like maybe I didn't quite fit in here either. The end of the road comes. The one thing I think we all can relate to is that feeling at the end. Like, it didn't matter that I still had externally looked like my life was manageable. I was dead inside. The point came, and I distinctly remember this. I'm at work one day. I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the computer screen, and it hits me. I'm like, I can't stop getting high. Like, I thought this was just recreational. I thought I was just going to do this because I'm the party guy and I like to have a good time. I can't stop. What's going to happen? The only thing I know that people like me experience is they keep doing this and then they die. I'd never heard of Narcotics Anonymous, so it was not a good place to be. That isolation in a room full of people, especially when I got home, and then that last 3 weeks before I was convinced to go to a facility, it was terrible, man. And I remember that specifically, that feeling of isolation, loneliness. I don't want to get high, but I do want to get high. But getting high is making my life fall apart, but I still want to get high. Like it was terrible. So, by recommendation of a power greater than myself, I entered one of these facilities. It was what it was. A lot of us have been there. Not everyone, and that's cool too. But what I am grateful for that facility is they took us to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. I don't remember my first meeting. I don't remember my first few meetings. But what I do remember was at some point during the process, to get my cell phone back, I had to get a sponsor. It was never because I wanted to. And we went to this NA meeting. I knew right off that NA was where I was supposed to be. Other fellowships and methods don't work for me personally. I don't feel at home there like I do here. So I meet, there's this guy, he's handing out key tags. He hands me my 30-day key tag, and I'm like, would you be my sponsor? He said, well, yeah, man, let's do it. I got real good, I thought I got really good at making you guys believe what I was saying and that I was doing all of the right things. Truth be told, you knew the whole time that I was full of shit. So I get the sponsor, I get, a step working guide, a basic text, I start going through the process. And when I think about the spirit of love, it makes me think about this one particular encounter with my first sponsor. I'd written on my first step, it was absolute bullshit. He picked me up, he took me back to the house I was staying at, and as I go to get out of the car, he says, hey, I love you. What? I didn't think it was like that, because that was the only semblance of love that I knew at that point in time, that's really stuck with me ever since then. He's still clean. He lives in Tennessee. The facility I went to was in Tennessee. That's an even longer story. It's not really relevant. So I'm at this facility, and I have this thing where I think that certain rules don't apply to me. One of those being, you're not supposed to have sex with the people that you're in the facility with. And me being me and excited and feeling life with, 60, 90 days clean, not only do I do the thing, but then I have to tell everybody about it. And they proceed to tell me, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So I got kicked out. In hindsight, it was probably one of the best things that could have happened, because prior to going there, I was still in a relationship with a using addict. I would have went home to that environment. I would have felt guilty for all of the things that I had done and not gone to meetings, not done the things that we do here. And I probably would have gotten high and might have even died. Because I wasn't going to leave that relationship. How am I going to pay my bills? Where am I going to live? Where am I going to stay? So he found out what I did. He said, come get your shit and don't come back. And I was like, yes. That worked in my favor. But so I come back to the area. I was in Clarksburg at the time, and I didn't know what else to do. Now I'm jobless, homeless. I just got kicked out of rehab. I guess I'll go to a meeting, because that was really all I knew to do at that point. It was the Second Wind group. So I started going into meetings here and got my first home group ever. And it's still a meeting. It is Serenity and Unity at 6:30 on Tuesdays in Bridgeport. That was my home group for the first couple years. And I liked it because I've always been more comfortable around women. And it was a home group full of ladies. There was no distractions for me in that home group. But I distinctly remember walking into my first meeting, and Christy K was there, and I go to walk in, and I stick my hand out to shake her hand. And she goes, we don't fucking do that here. And she gave me the biggest hug, and I felt like I was at home. But here's the problem. I still have this belief that there's some external solution to all this. I am intelligent. I can outthink this. I can figure my way around it. I don't have to do all the things that you guys do. I'm going to make it look like I'm doing the things that you guys do so that I fit in, because that's what I've always done. But I never really gave it an honest effort. So I end up getting a job back, getting my own place. I get 6 months under my belt. People with black key tags kept giving me these suggestions, and I thought they didn't know anything about me. They didn't know what they were talking about. I have a sponsor. Well, where's he at? He's in Tennessee. And you've got, 6 months clean? Yeah, I'm honest with him on the phone. I tell him everything. That was not true. So to make a long story short, I had thought about getting high for 2 weeks, maybe 3. I had started the actions to get myself high for a week. Didn't tell anybody. I don't need to tell anybody. I'm not actually going to do this. I have drugs in my locker at work. I don't know what I thought I was going to do. And the day came and I got high. 6 months clean, and I thought it was the end of the world. Every time I tell this story, it still gives me this sense of gratitude and, my higher power's will and presence. Because I can't fully explain what happened next. I know a lot of people that use that last time and they don't make it. Or they don't make it back for a really long time. I went to an appointment after I left work. By the way, that was terrible. That was not the feeling I was looking for. It was guilt, shame, I'm a fuck up, I can't do this, I have to hide from everybody at work for the next 3 hours until I can clock out. So I go to this appointment. And I'm telling, for the first time, I got really honest. I was like, hey man, here's what happened. I don't know what to do. I said, my plan is I'm going to leave this appointment, I'm going to get a 24-pack, and then I'll figure it out from there. He said, can I give you a suggestion? And he was not a member of this fellowship. I said, yeah. He said, why don't you go to a meeting first, and then if you still want to get high, do whatever you want. I said, why not? I got nothing else to do tonight. So while I don't remember my first meeting, I do remember that meeting. I can tell you exactly where I sat in that meeting. And, I was the kind of guy at that point in time, I would show up 5 minutes before the meeting started, leave as soon as it was over, not really talk a whole lot to anybody. So I go to this meeting. It's a candlelight meeting, and I'm stoked because I do not want anybody to see my face right now. And this meeting didn't give out key tags till the end of the meeting. By now, I had texted my sponsor and told him what I did. And the only thing I really was concerned about, I said, do I have to start the steps over? I was like, I just got high one time. Do we really have to start over again? He said, well, clearly you missed something the first time around. So I said, all right, fair enough. So I'm sitting in this meeting, and the guilt is just eating me alive. The door is right behind me. The whole time, I could have left that meeting at any point in time. And for whatever reason, I stayed. we get to the end, and they start handing out key tags, and they do the white one first, and I just start sobbing. I get up, and I go, and Benjamin K. gave me my white key tag, and I'll never forget what he said to me. He gave me the biggest hug, and he said, "I'm glad you made it back. I'm glad you didn't die." That thought hadn't occurred to me when I thought about getting high. I wasn't going to die. I knew what I was doing. So then, meeting finishes. We go outside. I'm still uncertain about what I'm going to do at this point. But Benjamin has other plans. And him and his daughter Kendra hold me hostage at my truck for 2 hours, talking about Narcotics Anonymous and the basic text and whatever else I wanted to talk about or didn't want to talk about. I don't think I talked. I think I just stood there and watched them for a while until my feet were numb. I didn't want to get high. I just wanted to go the fuck home. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't know that I would still be here today without that particular example of unconditional love. Man. So then I go back to my home group. My home group just happens to be the next night. So yeah, my clean date is October 31st. And I've always found it kind of symbolic, because like Halloween's always been my favorite holiday, because that's the one day of the year I could be anybody but myself. And now it's my clean date where I start to learn who I am and get to be myself. Like, that's pretty fucking cool. I'm going to hold on to that one. So I go to my home group the next night. For those who don't know Christy, she has a very deep, passionate love for Rottweiler dogs. And I come into my home group, and she's telling me about these dogs, and she pauses, and she says, "What's going on with you?" I said, "Well, I got high yesterday." She goes, "Oh, fuck, whatever I was talking about isn't relevant. Like, we got bigger fish to fry here." Let me tell you, Christy does not give suggestions. She's very intimidating. She says, "All right, well, here's what you're going to do. When you get 90 days clean, you're going to chair this home group. When you get 6 months clean, you're going to go to area service, and you're going to be the GSR." And I was not going to argue with this girl, because she already put me in my place once. I didn't need it done again. And I started doing the things, man. I got a sponsor in this area, not 800 miles away. And that was a bit of a journey, too. Because I'm like, do I want a female sponsor? Do I want a male sponsor? Should I have a male sponsor? And it's funny, because group conscience is not always correct. And I'm going to tell you why. 7 different people suggested the same sponsor to me. Typically, in group conscience, I should probably do that decision, right? Then Christy suggests the same person to me. I said, "Christy, I cannot ask this man to sponsor me." She said, "Why not?" I said, "Because every time I look at him..." Oh, yeah. To this day. But, she then directed me to his sponsee, who I was not as attracted to. And honestly, that was one of the first loving relationships with a man that I've ever experienced in my life that was not romantic or sexual. And I'm grateful for that, because I didn't think that was something I was capable of. Up until that point, all of my relationships with men had either been sexual or nothing. That's the truth. So we start working steps. I go to area service. I'm the GSR. I'm really getting involved in this thing. I don't know at what point I finally bought into all this, because I was not about it in the beginning. You guys made me feel at home. You made me feel important. You asked me to sit at the front row when you gave your lead. And I knew I was home, man. And I've stayed since then. You know, even today my life looks a lot different. It's a lot busier. I still make 3 meetings a week, because that's what I need. I still work steps. I still have a sponsor. And it just keeps getting better. I forgot. I always like to toot my horn on this one. So there's this suggestion that we often give newcomers that most of us don't take, that you should not get into a relationship for the first year. I did that. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. I did not know any more about romantic relationships after that year than I did in the beginning. However, I did not have the distractions from my sponsor, from my home group, from the people that mattered. I got the time to build those relationships. I genuinely believe that's part of the reason why I'm still here. But everybody's different, and I've seen people do it different ways, and they do just fine. I will tell you, I was super resentful at my 1-year celebration because I had this belief that my higher power was going to bless me with a knight in shining armor at my 1-year celebration because I had done the thing that nobody does. Some people do it. And romantic relationships have been a struggle for me my entire recovery. I did go the first 5 years without being in a relationship. Am I going to tell that story? Yeah, I am. Oh, man, this is where the rubber meets the road, guys. You ready? So I had a sponsee. Yeah. My disease can come up with all kinds of wonderful justifications for things. And we hung out all the time. I honestly didn't think a whole lot about it. And we had good communication. He called me all the time. We go to hang out and have dinner one night, and he calls me after. He says, I think I have feelings for you. I did the right thing the first time. I said, I don't know. I think you've got some mixed emotions going on here. Like, I got to go. We'll talk tomorrow. So he calls me back tomorrow, the next day, and says, my feelings haven't changed. I said, well, first, you need to find a new sponsor. Second, what are you doing tonight? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and here's the wild part. I went to a guy that had 40 years clean and asked him specifically, I said, have you ever seen a sponsorship relationship turn romantic and succeed? And he actually thought about it for probably a minute or two. He says, you know, in all the years I've seen that happen 3 times, and every one of them got high. Not me. Like, this is different. I will say that is one thing that I'm grateful for that situation is neither of us ended up high in the end. What I realized was it is very difficult for me to be in a relationship knowing how to practice spiritual principles in my life with somebody that doesn't know how to do that. It becomes this whole cycle of like, well, I'm going to do it for you and see how that works and build a resentment. Or I'm just going to give you suggestions and you're not going to follow them, and then I'm going to build a different resentment. Or I'm just going to sit back and watch you, take my hands off of it, and build a third resentment because you're off the chain. It just didn't work out. But another good lesson I learned from that is I can walk away from a relationship that isn't working. And I can do it maturely. Like, I picked him up from work and took him home, and we're sitting in the car, and I was like, listen, this just isn't working. I was a little beside myself when he said, yeah, I feel the same way. And since then, it's just been, my sponsor calls it serial dating, serial relationships, one to the next. As soon as I'm on my way home from the date, I'm coming up with 100 reasons why this will never work out and why I should never call this person again. But the steps are starting to work on that part of my life. It's been a whole process. So this was before I started dating the sponsee. I hit a point in my recovery with about 3 or 4 years clean. And I was actually doing it the way you guys suggested. I've been working steps, building a relationship with my higher power, which I was not about, for the record. After my experience with religion as a child, the word God was not, no, please stop saying that. Now I'm cool with it, and I have a relationship with my higher power. because of the steps, because of the way this program is designed. Lost my train of thought. I love when that happens. So, working through the process of the steps, I've got to build a relationship with the God of my understanding. And like I said, it's taken a while. I was sharing in a meeting earlier today about step 3. For me, it was just making a decision to do the rest of the steps. And that worked for me for a while. That was all I needed. I didn't need a specific higher power at this point in time. So I get to... I remember where I was now, sorry guys. So I get to a few years clean, and I'm sitting there having worked steps, done this whole process, and I have this awful realization. I'm doing everything you guys said, and I still hate myself. Everything about me. I don't like this. And I was listening in that meeting, and one of my friends shared about vulnerability. And as soon as she got done, I opened my mouth and said, "My name's Andy, I'm an addict," and I just start sobbing uncontrollably. Like, how can this be? I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. How can I still feel this way? So I switched sponsors. Nothing wrong with the first one. I just needed something different. I still have a great relationship with my first sponsor today. But I needed something more. And the time that I switched, I was on step 12 for the first time. And that's where we started talking about unconditional love. And that was what I had been missing. And it's at the end for a reason. You know, prior to that, the only love except for you guys, the only love I knew was conditional. I had to do something to earn it. There was one other person, and this is kind of a cool story, and I shared this in the step 8 and 9. My grandma was the best. Prior to Narcotics Anonymous, she was the only person that I ever felt truly loved me unconditionally. And this was before active addiction got bad. It was still manageable. And I remember I was going to go see her, and I decided to go get high instead. I said, "It's almost Thanksgiving. I'm going to see her in a couple of days. It'll be fine." She fell and hit her head and died that night. Yeah. So the amends process is really cool because it can change. So when I went through it the first time, I knew I owed her some kind of amends. And my grandma was the type of person, her biggest fear in life was that she was going to die in the middle of the night, and the EMS was going to come in and they were going to find dirty dishes in her sink. So initially, my amends for that situation was I'm going to make sure my dishes are clean every night in memory of her. Like, it worked. So I go through this process, have this realization, switch sponsors, and I realize that's not the amends. The amends for me in that situation is to learn how to love myself the way that she loved me. And we're getting there. This time around through the steps has been, I can't even describe it, man. It was mostly about the drugs the first time around. It's on a different, deeper level now. Fantasy versus reality. That is where I'm at today. I get to the 5th step this second time after going over my 4th step, and my sponsor did it different this time. She said, "I want you to write down the exact nature of your wrongs." I'm like, I've done a 6th step before. I can write out these defects. We're good. And I write it out, and I've got this beautiful, eloquent paper written. And I give it to her, and she goes, "No, do it again." I said, "What?" She said, "Do it again. You don't got it." So I thought about it. I did it again, and it got shorter. She said, "You're getting warmer. Do it again. Make it simpler." I realized, at least at that point in time, the exact nature of my wrongs is I did not feel that I was worthy of other people's love or my higher power's love. I do not feel that way today. Having just shared that 9th step, there's this really amazing line in there. And I don't know how I missed it the first time. I missed a lot of shit the first time through. Real security replaces the physical ache and mental confusion we've experienced in the past. That's what I was looking for when I was getting high. Real security. That's what I was looking for when I was being promiscuous, gambling, doing all of these other things. I wanted this feeling of security that I have now. Because of you guys, because of the Spirit of Love, because of the 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous, because of this fellowship. There's this thing that I heard my entire life. Before I got clean, a little bit while I was using, and then my first few stages in recovery, people would always say to me, I wish you could see what it is we see. I was like, I don't know what you guys see. I do today. And that's because of this step, because of this process. I am amazing. And let me tell you, there is a difference between saying that and feeling it. And I fucking feel it today. So yeah, I'm interested to see where this journey goes. Thank you, everybody that helped me get here. The one thing I always like to leave with, it's true. We never have to use again. We can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. If you're new here, stay. We need you. If you've been here for a while, stay. We need you too. I love you guys. That's it.